Hi guys, it's Bridget. So today's video is going to be about books that I thought that I wouldn't like when I picked them up, but then I actually ended up really enjoying. There are 3 books on this list. It is a short one because, to be honest, I really don't usually pick up books that I don't think that I'm going to enjoy. But it does happen on occasion, so it is fun to kind of look back and figure out why I thought I wouldn't like it and then what did actually work really well for me. The first book on this list is actually a series of books, and it is the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. And this series is one that my mom and my sister read for years, and they kept telling me that I needed to read them, I needed to pick them up, and that I would love them, and for some reason I just kept resisting. The only thing that I really knew about the story was that it was about time travel and it involved some like hunky Scottish guy in the 1700s. So I'm picturing, just based off of this knowledge alone, like a bodice ripper, super cheesy romance novel, which is just so not my speed. Finally, this year I did pick them up, mostly just to get my family off my back, and it turns out they are 1,000 times better than I thought they were. At this point, I am 7 books and like 6,000 some pages into the series with no chance of slowing down anytime soon. They actually read much more like historical fiction than romance, and there are some elements of fantasy thrown in there too, mainly with the time traveling aspect of them. The story itself follows our protagonist Claire after she finds herself transported back in time to the Scottish Highlands in 1742. She is trying to get back home to her own time while also navigating the dangers of this new world that she's found herself in, specifically the rising Jacobite rebellion and the British occupation of Scotland. Along the way, she meets Jamie, who is an escaped Scottish prisoner hiding from the British authorities, and ultimately the book and the series end up following Jamie and Claire as their relationship grows and they try to navigate an increasingly dangerous world together. At the same time, Claire also has to decide if she still does want to make her way back home to her own time, or if she wants to embrace this new life with Jamie in the 1700s. Jamie and Claire's relationship is one of my favorites of any book that I've read so far. They really love each other and they respect each other, but they also challenge each other, and the relationship just feels very authentic and it seems realistic to me. On top of that, there is so much more political intrigue and action than I was expecting in these books. Diana Gabaldon has created this wonderfully intricate world. I feel like I know the characters on such an intimate level, and it really makes the books and the series so special to me when I read them. I seriously just wish that I had listened to my mom and my sister sooner and I hadn't held out for so long on reading these books. I don't know what I was thinking. They are the perfect blend of historical fiction, which I love, fantasy, which I love, and now romance, which these books actually are the ones that have gotten me into trying to find other romance novels that I enjoy. These have easily become one of my favorite series that I've picked up this year. They are long, but they are so worth it. The next book that I added to this list is Of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham. This is a book that I added to my TBR because I wanted to get more into classic literature. But to be honest, I really didn't have much intention of ever picking it up. It just didn't really interest me. But sometimes when I don't know what to read, I will literally go into my Goodreads TBR list and sort it by a specific filter. In this case, I think it was page number, and this was at the top of the list, so I picked it up. But when I picked it up from the library, the cover was so bad. I will show you the library edition cover that I got here. I'll swap it out so that you can just appreciate how ugly it was. And when I saw it, I was like, this is gonna be awful. It's gonna be dry and boring and outdated, and I'm gonna hate every second of this. But you know, I actually ended up being very pleasantly surprised by it. It is actually a long book, but it's not a very difficult one. The story follows our protagonist, Philip Carey, from childhood to adulthood as he tries to figure out who he is. It's essentially a coming-of-age novel, and Philip is constantly redefining himself throughout his different phases of his life. From living with his religious aunt and uncle in childhood, to moving to go to university in Germany, and then eventually studying art in Paris, to finally becoming a doctor in London, you can see how his beliefs and his outlooks on life really change depending on who he's with and the life experience that he's gained. Eventually, he meets a woman named Mildred, and they develop this really toxic relationship, but his attraction to her ends up being very central to his own sense of self-understanding. The reason that I really loved this book was that I felt this deep connection to Philip Carey as a character. He would go through these moments in life where he was passionate and excited and just looking forward to the possibilities in front of him, and then eventually he would get disillusioned, he would become disappointed and end up kind of aimless, and he is not always very likable. I mean, he can be whiny and pessimistic and sometimes very selfish, but he felt very real and authentic to me. His journey just hit so close to home with my own internal struggles and outlook on life, and some of my favorite quotes have actually come from this book. Also, the fact that it was written over 100 years ago is crazy to me. It feels like it could have been written yesterday. It is still so relevant and so timeless. If you like literary fiction or coming of age novels with really interesting, complicated characters, I definitely recommend that you should check this one out. It is long, but don't let that put you off. It's so good and it's not a difficult read. The last book that I added to this list is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me by Mindy Kaling. This book was on my shelf for years before I finally picked it up, and I think at one point I actually owned 2 copies of it, but I never really felt the urge to actually read it. I don't usually like celebrity memoirs, especially when there's so many other books out there that I want to read, and I didn't particularly care about Mindy Kaling's story. Once I finally did read this one, I actually really enjoyed it. It's told in a bunch of short essays. Some of them are about times in Mindy's life, others are just a page or 2 of random thoughts that she has. But I think that the reason that I loved this one so much was that reading it felt like having a sleepover with my sister or some friends and spending the night chatting and laughing and sharing random life observations. Mindy is so funny and so endearing, and I really appreciated what a quick read this was. She really keeps it short and sweet, which is perfect for these kind of books. You won't find anything super deep or life-altering in this book, but I read it in about a day and it just left me feeling good afterwards. It made me smile, and sometimes that is just all you want out of a book. So those were the 3 books that I added to this list. All of them were ones that I thought that I would not enjoy or held off reading for a long time, and then once I finally picked them up, I absolutely loved them. Let me know if you guys have any books like that that you've read, or if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this list. I would love to hear if you felt the same way as me, or if you didn't, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content and you have not already, please do remember to like and subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next video.